Hi! Today we have an amazing doctor in the house. Dr. Ladynez Espinal. We're going to ask her some questions about homeschooling and going and becoming a doctor.
So basically, I've been invited to come here and speak because a lot of homeschool parents question whether or not it's possible for a homeschool child to be able to attend medical school or to be able to attend law school. So I can't really respond as far as law school goes, but I'm assuming it's pretty much the same thing. When I was a medical student, I actually interviewed potential med students, pre-med students. Mm-hmm. So whenever I would get the files, I always looked to see who was the most interesting candidate. Unfortunately, about 80% or so of pre-med students, which are basically college students who want to attend medical school, major in biology. Some major, like myself, in microbiology and immunology, chemistry, biochemistry, but the majority major in biology. And those applicants, I rarely ever looked at their application because I considered them boring. So what I was looking for was a student who was more innovative, so someone who was not a sheep, who was not a follower, and someone who could bring something different into the medical school program that I was part of.
That was a lot to unwrap. So what do you need to do? What are the steps that you need to do to go to medical school?
So one of the requirements is basically to get the best grades possible. So as close to possible as a 4.0 GPA. Now granted, nowadays they have, students can get a 5.0 GPA, but when I was a medical student, everything went to 4.0. So you want to get the best grades possible, obviously, because it's a competitive field. And you also want to get in certain hours as far as volunteer hours and what kind of jobs have you had or internships or anything of that nature. So a student, whether the student is homeschooled or not, can get good grades. Obviously, I understand when you de-school, when you homeschool, you may not assign a grade, which is not important because nobody knows what grades I got in elementary school. Straight A's, by the way. But nobody knows that. And as far as high school, same thing. I got grades good enough, 4.0 by the way, or at least a 3.9 something. But either way, in order for students to attend a good college, they want great grades,
Yeah.
So if you're homeschooled throughout high school, if you're homeschooled in elementary school, then it doesn't really matter. And I just feel that if you bring that or if you put that in your application, it makes you stand out. You can talk about the experience you had as a homeschooler. For example, I just started homeschooling my children, and the adventures that we've had when we travel cannot compare to some children who are, and I'm not, putting down anybody who does a regular school, because I attended,
regular school,
public school and private school.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a homeschool child, so I'm definitely not putting anyone down who chooses to do this. But when my kids have traveled, they've had so many great experiences, and I feel that this has made them more well-rounded. This is something they can talk about during an interview or put in an application, So I just feel that it does make that person well-rounded, very interesting, and these students actually stand out,
more.
They stand out more.
Because if they're homeschool, they're going to stand out in the application.
Exactly.
So if they're homeschool and like we de-school our children, and we like to do a lot of reading books, what books would you recommend for them to read if they want to become doctors?
That's a good question. And the problem I feel with the medical school system is that for pre-med students and medical students, I feel that they basically put blinders on us. So they want you to just focus in and zero in on studying biochemistry and the sciences. And that person is not well-rounded. So what I always tell people is when you go to college, take your pre-med courses. Those are prerequisites. That's why it's called pre-med. Mm-hmm. You have to take prerequisites. But if you have a love for history, then major in history. If you have a love for art or theater or anything, then do that, because you may not be able to do that, at least not in depth, when you are actually in medical school or once you're done and you graduate. So take that time to learn what you're passionate about and what you love that has nothing to do with the sciences. And it also helps with the grades because they'll divide the grades so that, obviously biochemistry would be very challenging. So if you have all your pre-med courses, the organic chemistry, the general chemistry, the biologies, and you ace those, then it'll be easier for you to obviously ace something you're passionate about, if it's world religion, history, whatever the case is. But if everything is science, if everything's biology, it'll be difficult to maintain a higher grade. And another thing is I majored, like I said, in microbiology and immunology. And in my medical school program, we did that in basically 2 months. So what I busted my butt for and struggled to maintain a very high GPA, I did it in a very small period of time. And biology is not the study of humans,
Yeah.
So, whether, what the frog's inside look like, I can care less. You know what I mean? So I feel that people should focus on studying something that they really want to, that they're really passionate about. And as far as books, when I interviewed, I wasn't being asked questions on chemistry, biochemistry, physiology, anatomy. My questions were about world politics. So I had to learn about politics. So I always recommend that people read about politics, read about everything, and learn as much as you can so that you're a well-rounded individual. And I recommend not majoring in the sciences. One of the questions I would ask pre-med students is, okay, well, the person that's giving you this advice, like the person that gave me the advice to major in microbiology, did she ever attend medical school? The answer is no.
Wow.
Did she ever enter a residency program? The answer is no. So if you were to ask a resident, someone in medical school, whether or not they think they should major in biology or chemistry, listen to their answers. And I guarantee that more than 90% will disagree with that counselor and say, no, major in something completely different. Because if you want to be a chemist, then that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But to go to medical school, you don't have to be a chemist, obviously. You don't have to major in chemistry. You're going to get that anyway in your prerequisites, So.
Okay. So if you are homeschooled, and here in Florida, we can have the kids take a test if they want to go to college and start early because it's the dual enrollment.
Yes.
I guess it's covered and free. What classes should they start taking when they're inside, college?
Well, the thing is, it's going to be easier to take, let's say, physiology, anatomy. Obviously, it's easier if you already have some foundation. So what I would recommend is to try and take at least some of these classes before going to college, because then that's something you're going to take when you're in college anyway. So I would recommend definitely taking the very basic, which would be anatomy and physiology.
So reading books about anatomy and physiology, yes. And studying that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And hold on.
Oh, and another thing is I recommend also taking a finance class or a business class, because medicine is a business. So I own my own medical practice, and I've made so many mistakes. Why? Because I didn't know about business. And a lot of my colleagues as well, if you came from, let's say middle-class family, and all of a sudden you start making 6 figures, a lot of people don't know what to do with this. So a lot of people, nice weather. So a lot of people end up not knowing how to manage their finances. So I feel it's very important for everyone to understand how to manage that and take, like I said, a finance class or take a business class, at least one of each is my recommendation.
Does your viewpoint only apply to students who want to become doctors, or does it apply to other students who want to join the medical field?
I feel that my viewpoint is for everyone. So whether you're a nurse practitioner or someone obviously who wants to become a nurse practitioner or physician's assistant, I think that it all applies as well. Now, granted, it'll be different because once you're in nursing school, you have to take those classes to become a nurse. So the prerequisites would be different. The basics ones would be the same. But I would still, if you're in college and you want to enter nursing school, then obviously there are different tracks. If you're able to major in something that's not nursing, then I highly recommend majoring in something different that you're passionate about or that you just want to learn about. You may not be passionate about business, but you say, you know what, I want to learn about business because one day I want to become a business owner. So then the same would apply. And people need to also look into other fields because, granted it's great being a physician and everything, but a lot of students don't know about other fields in the medical fields. For example, a lot of people don't know what it is to become an embryologist. They don't even know what that is because that's something we don't discuss. Everything's like nurse, teacher, doctor, lawyer, but there's so many other fields out there. So if a woman wants to do in vitro fertilization, then who's the one that picks the right embryo? Well, it's an embryologist, you know. So there are other fields out there. People have to look into this, and I highly recommend also, if the student has the opportunity to shadow someone, then definitely take that opportunity. Because like I said, there's so many other things out there. There's, you know, you can become a nurse, but you can become a nurse anesthetist, you know, and work under the guidance of an anesthesiologist.
Yeah.
And there's so many fields out there, and it's just a matter of doing your research, talking to people. Don't be shy, ask questions. I've had medical students, nurse practitioners, PA students all rotate with me, and they'll see a different perspective. When they speak with me, they'll learn different perspectives, and when they round with other doctors and other people in the healthcare field as well.
I have other questions for you. So, as a homeschooling parent for the first time, what are your thoughts, since you come from a traditional background of public and private school, on homeschooling?
Well, I'm actually deschooling my children, and even though in the beginning it was very, very difficult, I didn't know. I've heard of, you know, some of my friends homeschool their children, and I wasn't sure where I stood. Plus, I worked a lot, and my partner worked a lot, so it was very difficult. So initially I thought about doing Montessori, which I did for a little while. But when my daughter was 7, she asked me basically, Mom, she's a lawyer in the family, basically. Mom, why did you bother having children if you're not going to spend time with them?
Wow.
Yes.
That's a very
Very
good question.
I was very scared of her, and I said, let me get back to you on that. So I realized that I was working a lot, and I was not enjoying the fruits of my labor. So even though my children had, you know, whatever the necessities were, the basic necessities, I wasn't doing my part as a parent, and that was never what I wanted for my children. I was raised by my parents. Both of them worked. My grandmother was the one who would take care of me. And my children, on the other hand, didn't have that luck. I ended up always having to depend on a nanny. And I didn't want the children to spend more time with the nanny than they do with me. So what I did is I worked my butt off and saved lots of money. And I'm able now to work part-time. So what my children do is that they go to a co-op D-school program for just a few hours, and then the rest of the time they're homeschooled with me. We also take this time to travel and do a lot of things that otherwise other children can't get to do with their parents. So I wasn't as lucky. My mother, being raised in New York, she worked very long hours because she had to take the train for at least an hour. On the way back home, at least another hour. My dad worked a lot, and they were basically out of the house from 7 a.m. to about 7 p.m. when I would see them. So I went to private school, like I said. I went to public school, and I didn't spend that much time with my parents, and I didn't want my children to have that. So I didn't want them, okay, well, now they have the big house, the pool, the toys, but they don't have that time with their parents. That nothing can replace me. So what I decided to do was, well, I still got to enjoy being a practicing physician with my own practice, but I hired a nurse practitioner. She helped out a lot, and now I'm able to work part-time. So I feel that what's important is that the children get to see mommy, they get to spend more time with me, and I'm able to actually have conversations. It's not rushed the way I feel it was before. I would come home and play with them just a little bit because next thing you know, it's their bedtime.
Yeah.
So right now I feel more relaxed. So when I come home, it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's have discussions. So there's more bonding time.
And also, you know, before, when they were in school, they had homework, right?
Yes, yes.
So they had a lot of homework to do, and you would have to come home, and they were still working on homework.
Yes, and I went to a private Catholic school for most of my life, and let me tell you, I was bombarded with homework. And even though I like homework because I was raised with a lot of it, and I feel that it made me the person who I am today, I feel that I can guide my children as far as what I think is important. If you ask me questions about things I had to write 100 times on paper or memorize, that never was beneficial to me. So I do things differently. So I help the kids I guide the children a little bit, and I ask them, what is it that you want to learn about? And if I think there's something important, let's say as far as science, I really want them to learn something, I'll kind of guide them in that direction, but then allow them to express themselves and to think outside of the box and to be more creative. And what I also do is when I had a very rigid program growing up, but that also made me OCD, and I think there are a lot of qualities that a lot of people have that are not the best qualities because of that type of schooling, and I don't want that for my children. So I asked my children, what is it that you want to learn, and what is it that you would want to teach your siblings, so that way they feel that they know something well enough that they can teach. So my daughter, for example, loves to cook. So I said, okay, well, let's discuss a recipe, and what do you want to cook? What do you want to teach your brother? What do you want to teach myself? My son loves to build Legos. He's more of a STEM kid. So what is it that you would like to teach us? So it gives him the opportunity to read. So you incorporate reading, but he's reading something he's interested in that he can teach his sister, that he can teach me. There's a saying, and I think it goes something like, you don't know something until you teach it. So once my child is able to teach me, then I feel that they've basically as close to have mastered it as possible. Yeah. So I think that opportunity is not given to a lot of students in traditional schools. And I may be wrong for some things. It depends on the teacher too. Yeah. But I mean, there's so many great teachers out there, and I feel that a lot of teachers want to do more, but they have to stick to a curriculum, and it makes it very difficult. And I feel that the standardized tests are not a good thing. Some children are great test takers, but they don't have the knowledge. They just memorize it, take a test. And there are other students who are, the other way. They're great students. They're just poor test takers. Yes. And I don't believe in standardized testing because we're not all the same. We don't all have the same strengths. And, you can ask me questions on surgery, for example, and I can have all the best answers, but does that make me a great surgeon? Right? Yeah. So when there's an emergency, do you want a surgeon that knows exactly what instrument to use, but doesn't know how to apply it in the OR? Or do you want someone that knows exactly what to do and they're a great surgeon, but that's something that they cannot show you on paper? You see? So that is why I feel that homeschooling or deschooling is a great opportunity basically for all students to shine, whether they want to enter the medical field or whether they want to attend college or whatever it is that they want to do with their lives.
Okay. So another question for you would be, what are you planning to incorporate for your kids in school this year for the homeschooling, deschooling?
Well, one of the things we started doing last year actually is we have a garden in the house. So they learned a little bit about gardening. And I need to learn more because I do not have a green thumb. But we were able to grow red bell peppers, green bell peppers, strawberries, a few things. And we also bought a butterfly garden. So the children actually saw the metamorphosis, not in a book, but hands-on. And that was a great experience. And I recommend it to everyone. I got them an ant farm. Not everyone can travel, but if you have the opportunity to travel, we've gone to the rainforest. We've gone to my home country, which is a third world country. They've seen how children live. And to me, that's sociology at its finest, And they've seen children barefoot walking the streets. They've seen not needing vaccines, and yet they don't get sick. And I've seen, they see how children, when they're hungry, they don't care. We'll share food and they're just eating. And my children now have a new appreciation for food and for eating healthy and for the grocery store, and for being able to grow your own food. They actually have a new appreciation because now they've seen it hands-on.
Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing. Are you involved in like mathematics, science, technology, more of the STEM?
Oh, definitely. We have everything. I mean, even they have a program for entrepreneurship at their school. So at their deschooling. So for example, my daughter has a rabbit that she bought, and some of the children have rabbits and they keep them at the school. So one of my daughter's jobs is she charges 25 cents a day for her to change the water and the food for the rabbits. So she actually makes money from the children, and then she chooses what she's going to do with that money. Another thing that we also have is stocks. So they do paper stocks basically. So they get fake money and they invest in stocks. I knew nothing about stocks growing up in the barrios in New York at all. Who was going to teach me that? Who knew about that? No one. Mm-hmm. So I feel that what I am teaching them are things that they're not getting in school. Yeah. So my son enjoys typing, and in 4th grade, 5th grade, at least in their school, they weren't learning that. So now he's learning how to type the correct way. So there's so many things, that you can incorporate. It doesn't have to be a long time. It doesn't have to be 8 hours of school a day.
No.
So I have him type about 10 minutes or so 4 times a week, and that'll suffice to help him in his typing, for example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming and answering these questions. If anyone else has questions, you can comment below and we can go ahead and answer them for you. And if not, we can bring you back.
Okay, I would love to come at a later time if anyone has any questions and I can be of any help, then I would love to be back. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that everyone enjoyed the conversation and the feedback that I was able to provide.
Love you.
It was right there.
Oh my God, I saw it right here.
This golf course
Yeah.
lit up.